his attorney offer that up publicly?
To me, her turning it down shows that it's not a money grab.
No, it shows that it's a bigger
I'm telling you, that's why I can say them so freely.
Kid, I need another one. You here, get you another one too,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
I've never seen anybody handle a situation worse than Shannon and his team. Like this is, they just handled it wrong from the whole beginning.
Yeah, well.
Come on. How does a Hall of Fame legend crash from NFL glory to a messy firing at ESPN? That's the burning question blowing up social media group chats and echoing in industry boardrooms. Shannon Sharpe's world flipped upside down less than 2 weeks after he quietly settled a $50 million civil case over explosive allegations. And just like that, the 3-time Super Bowl champ got shown the door by the biggest sports network in the game. And while Shannon tried to play it cool,
Seen some of my competitors and peers get on that same court and do a performance that involved my name. And so once 6 or 7 of you have made this same violation, it's my job as the king to show up and chastise thee. This is my job.
cracking jokes on his Nightcap podcast about light pockets and nudging Ocho Cinco to pay him back, the timing couldn't be worse. He never even mentioned the lawsuit by name, but he didn't have to. Everyone already knew, and his silence made the fall hit harder. This wasn't just another ESPN shakeup. It was the exclamation mark on a jaw-dropping spiral. What started as whispers turned into a full-blown storm in record time. A young woman, over 3 decades his junior, hit him with accusations of misconduct and threats. If you're following this drama, make sure you subscribe now so you don't miss the next twist. Shannon's legal team called it a straight-up shakedown, even revealing he had offered at least $10 million to keep private details out of the headlines. But the headlines didn't wait, and neither did ESPN. When his brother Sterling got inducted into the Hall of Fame just days later, Shannon's scandal was the shadow that stole the spotlight. His firing became the headline.
The routine was that Shannon, then they would.
Why was that relevant?
The stain that wouldn't wash out. But maybe this downfall wasn't such a surprise. Maybe the warning signs were flashing long before lawyers or ESPN got involved. And those signs, they weren't in courtrooms. They were on comedy stages and talk shows. 2 voices in Black entertainment, Katt Williams and Monique, had already sounded the alarm. Loud, raw, and unfiltered, they weren't afraid to call it like they saw it.
When people are against the Illuminati, then they get punched in the face all the time. The press hates them, and nobody likes them.
And now, looking back, their words feel like sirens everyone ignored. Katt especially saw it coming, almost like he had the script in his hands. In his now infamous Club Shay interview, the one with over 80 million views, Katt didn't just trade shots or crack wild jokes. He broke it down. He warned that older Black men climbing the money and status ladder were being drawn into toxic relationships with younger white women. He called it a setup, a pattern, something designed to lift you up, just so it could crush you later.
Because P. Diddy be wanting to party, and you gotta tell him no. You got to tell him no. I did.
A lot of folks brushed him off, saying it was just Katt being Katt. But in hindsight, his words hit different. When he joked, P. Diddy be wanting to party, and you gotta tell him no, it sounded playful. Now it feels cold and calculated, like he was laying out a blueprint. And Shannon? He walked right into it. The lawsuit's details aren't just disturbing, they're predictable if you've been listening to Katt and others. The age gap, the claims of manipulation, the blurred lines shaped by power, money, and a culture of silence. This wasn't new.
Essence from Atlanta, him refusing to look at the evidence just gives me the impression that he wants plausible deniability, and maybe the evidence should be released so that way he does not deny his actions. I mean, if that was me, I would definitely want to look at the evidence to see what I did and did not do so I can maintain my innocence.
This was textbook, and Hollywood history has shown us. Traps like this always spring shut sooner or later. Monique had her own warnings. For years, she's been the voice nobody wanted to hear. The one telling hard truths in a business allergic to accountability. When it came to relationships like Shannon's, she didn't mince words. Power and romance can be explosive when the man in power refuses to see the danger ahead. She's that auntie in the corner, telling you what you don't want to hear. That attention isn't love. That indulgence brings exposure. And that no man, no matter how famous, is untouchable if he lets the wrong person in. Shannon ignored that wisdom. And now,
on Easter Sunday, a lawsuit was filed in state court in Nevada against Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe because he has become such a massive media star, especially in the past few years. The lawsuit is going to attract.
He's paying the price in dollars and reputation. And let's not pretend money doesn't matter here. Shannon was on the verge of building an empire. His club, Shay podcast was blowing up. The Katt Williams episode alone reportedly pulled in more cash than any single NFL season he ever played. He even hinted it brought in more than $6 million, flashing a rare green-faced John Mayer Rolex worth around $70,000, grinning at Ocho Cinco like a man who knew he was stacking millions from streaming. But now, that empire is shaking. His reported $100 million podcast deal was supposedly just within reach, right before the lawsuit hit like a wrecking ball.
Shannon Sharpe says he's temporarily stepping away from ESPN in the wake of a $50 million lawsuit accusing him of rape. A woman filed suit against Sharpe on Sunday, accusing him of raping her.
It's not even clear if those big money offers are still on the table. And here's where things take a darker twist. Some insiders are whispering this wasn't just about Shannon's reckless moves. They're calling it a coordinated hit. The so-called Illuminati setup theory is creeping back into the conversation. Its shadowy fingerprints traced across nearly every high-profile celebrity implosion of the last decade. They say Shannon Sharpe climbed too fast, too independently, and way too far outside the system's grip. His partnership with Colin Cowherd's The Volume, his bold Club Shay Shay plays, his unapologetic takes on Black culture, sports, and power structures. Was he simply becoming too big to control?
Shannon Sharpe. So you guys remember that video that Shannon Sharpe was saying was going to release?
Yes,
that
it did.
No.
Oh.
It wouldn't be the first time a rising star allegedly got dismantled the second they moved without permission. Look at Ye. Before his most chaotic public spirals, he talked about handlers and warned of planned takedowns. And who did Katt Williams call out by name during his now legendary Club Shay Shay appearance, long before federal agents swarmed Diddy's mansions? Katt didn't just toss shade, he dropped a file. So when he hinted that chasing influence in a white-dominated ecosystem could end with betrayal and scandal, it wasn't just for laughs. It was a forecast. Shannon either missed the memo or thought it didn't apply to him. Maybe he believed he was too sharp, too disciplined, too media savvy to get caught slipping. This was a man who kept his image clean for over a decade on TV, transforming himself from flashy NFL star.
That's how we found out about the lawsuit against Shannon Sharpe. Now, this one has some very strong allegations: sexual assault, sexual battery, assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The sexual components obviously give it greater gravity than a car accident or any case based on some sort of negligent slip and fall, something like that, where someone was just being careless.
Into a respected commentator on serious topics. But the illusion of control shatters quick when a $50 million lawsuit lands, paired with 2 accusers, decades of alleged misconduct, and the sudden appearance of intimate audio, staged, consensual, or coerced. It doesn't matter. The optics are king, and optics just flipped the script on him overnight. Now, he's scrambling for damage control, his legal team calling it textbook blackmail, claiming it was all role-playing, insisting the relationship was fully consensual. But the internet never forgets. Old clips from his Instagram Live, Slip Up, where viewers heard what sounded like a private moment, are resurfacing, and not in his favor. Add whispers of past settlements, including one buried story about a physical altercation with a female FS1 production assistant. And suddenly, this looks less like a one-off scandal and more like a pattern. And if you buy into the whispers, this wasn't just a man fumbling the bag. It was the bag being yanked right out of his hands by people who never wanted him holding it. We've seen this movie before.
Reports that video will not be released. Attorney Tony Busby came out and said that they are not planning to release that video, how they were dropping audio, because it's a very strong point of their evidence in this case, and they're going to keep it and use it as such. Yeah. Now, that is interesting because Shannon Sharpe, remember, he kept saying he believes the video was going to come out. He believes the video was going to come out. So there's been a change.
Men of power drawn in, exposed, and discarded the moment they stopped being useful. Was Shannon reckless? No doubt. But was he also targeted the second he became a threat to the media gatekeepers? That's the question no one in mainstream sports journalism wants to answer. Publicly, Shannon claims he'll be back at ESPN for the next season. But now, that sounds more like hope than reality. The whispers are headlines, and the whispers behind those headlines point to something much more deliberate. The timing, the money, the ESPN silence, the steady drip of scandal after scandal, each one spaced out like chapters in a takedown novel. If this is coincidence, it's one of the most suspicious coincidences you'll ever see. And if it's a setup, then Shannon Sharpe just became another cautionary tale in a Hollywood playbook that always ends the same. Silence, settlement, and shame. ESPN didn't just cut him loose. They did it surgical style. Weeks after Shannon quietly settled a civil case for an undisclosed sum, they yanked him off air, pulled his chair from First Take, and gave him zero send-off. No farewell show, no redemption arc, not even a last televised defense. They moved like someone erasing fingerprints, fast and quiet. And here's the cut that hurt deepest. They did it just days before his older brother, Sterling Sharpe, finally got his long overdue Hall of Fame induction. While Sterling stood on that Canton stage soaking in a once-in-a-lifetime honor, Shannon's scandal dominated the headlines, drowning out his brother's applause.
Sean Watson cases where there were 20 plus plaintiffs and they weren't really sure who the people were who were making the claims. In this case, Shannon Sharpe knows exactly who it is because there had been, and it's clear from the statement issued by his lawyer, Lanny Davis, there had been some pre-litigation efforts to try to resolve.
One brother's career was being celebrated. The other's was vanishing in real time. Coincidence? In this business, coincidences that clean usually aren't coincidences at all. The suits at ESPN weren't blindsided. They saw the storm coming. They'd read the legal filings, skimmed every transcript, and sat through meetings with lawyers and brand managers. And still, they made a choice to let the scandal break during the Hall of Fame weekend, hitting not just Shannon, but the Sharpe name itself. Was it payback for something behind closed doors? Or cold-blooded brand protection from a company terrified of messy headlines? Either way, ESPN's silence screamed louder than any statement could. Shannon wasn't just fired, he was erased, scrubbed from their portfolio like a defective product. And not one co-host, producer, or executive has stepped forward to back him since. That cut deep, considering Sharpe helped launch their ratings into the stratosphere.
It's a claim against someone alleging that some rights were violated, and in most cases what's sought is compensation in the form of damages to make up for whatever it is the person did. And there are all sorts of civil lawsuits, car accidents, defamation. We hear about that a lot because people get sued about things that are said about them in media.
His back and forth with Stephen A. Smith pulled in younger viewers, fueled social media buzz, and brought in millions from advertisers. He turned First Take from a stale format into must-watch TV. And then, nothing. Gone. Replaced by polished corporate statements drafted by lawyers. The man they once praised as the future of sports debate was suddenly treated like a walking liability. Was it fair? Maybe not. Was it strategic? Without question. In high-stakes media, one lawsuit, one rumor, one headline, and your legacy flips into a risk factor overnight. And here's where the conspiracy talk heats up. What if this wasn't just about damage control? What if it was about removing a threat? Right before the lawsuit hit, Sharpe was reportedly closing in on a podcast deal worth over $100 million. A payday that would have made him one of the highest paid independent voices in sports media. Then, out of nowhere, a multi-count civil suit drops with explosive claims. Suddenly, the deal freezes, corporate partners pull away, and ESPN cuts ties like they never shook his hand. So who benefits from Sharpe's fall? That's where the dark money theory stops sounding like gossip.
If there is a God side and the other side, if there are moral things and things that are immoral, if there is this side or that side, it can't be left up to thought process. I'm an enforcer on this side.
And start sounding like a playbook. Some industry sources whisper that Jane Doe, the accuser, may have had more than just legal support. Rumor is, rival networks and media power players, afraid of Club Shay becoming too big to cancel, quietly bankrolled opposition research and legal costs to make sure Shannon's momentum hit a wall. A former exec from a competing podcast network even told one outlet there were people looking for a reason to stop that deal, and they got it. Then there's the legal muscle behind the case. Jane Doe's attorney, Tony Busby, isn't some small-time lawyer. He's a heavy hitter known for going after the rich and powerful. He's taken on athletes, moguls, and politicians. He went after Deshaun Watson. He's filed suits against Jay-Z. He even called out Diddy long before the feds got involved. So how does a little-known 20-year-old accuser, fresh from an OnlyFans profile, suddenly land one of the most aggressive lawyers in America?
Been funded. They pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that
and drop her case right as Shannon's streaming empire was peaking? Those aren't easy questions to answer. They're the kind of questions that raise the temperature in every Hollywood and sports media back room. Of course, Sharpe's team hit back hard, calling it a coordinated takedown, accusing his accuser of blackmail, twisting facts and using private recordings as weapons. And even though he settled, Shannon insists the relationship was fully consensual, claiming he paid only to stop more intimate content from leaking. His attorney, Lanny Davis, put it bluntly, This is exactly what happens when someone creates a fabricated narrative. But instead of calming the fire, the settlement poured gasoline on it. Once people learned millions had changed hands, the frenzy doubled. Now, Sharpe isn't just facing public opinion, he's fighting another defamation lawsuit tied to a decade-old relationship with a different ex. It's a siege from every direction.
Been funded. They pay you to not talk about things they don't want you to talk about. They tell you that.
And in the middle of it all, Shannon has lost his most powerful allies in the media. Meanwhile, the man who warned this was coming, Katt Williams, the same Katt who said the game would eat Shannon alive. His Club Shay Shay episode has become one of the most dissected, replayed, and quoted podcast moments in recent memory. And if the whispers are true, Katt's sitting on even more explosive material for a follow-up interview, possibly dropping as early as January 3rd, 2025. The timing almost feels prophetic. If Katt Williams really laid out the blueprint, did Shannon Sharpe just follow it step by step? And was that first viral sit-down not just a tell-all, but a coded warning? Katt didn't just call out comedians for stealing material. He broke down the entire machine of sabotage. He warned that when black men get too powerful, too visible, too independent, the hammer comes down hard. Not because they slipped up, but because they rattled the power structure. And if Shannon truly was on the verge of becoming the next sports media mogul with a $100 million platform and full creative control, then maybe, without even realizing it, he stepped straight into the crosshairs of something way bigger than his personal life. Picture the quiet meetings, the closed-door dinners, the hushed conversations where PR teams, lawyers, and executives swap names and circle the next target. In that world, cancel culture isn't just a trending hashtag, it's an economic weapon. The higher a man climbs, the quicker the trap is set. The second he tries to own his narrative, someone else starts writing a darker one for him. That's not wild speculation, that's a pattern. And if Katt Williams could see it coming for Shannon, who else is already on the hit list? Because if a Hall of Famer with crossover appeal, Emmy buzz, and decades of goodwill can be brought down this fast, then no one in that space is untouchable. Which raises the real question: who's actually pulling the strings? What do you think? Was Shannon's downfall self-inflicted or part of a much bigger setup? Drop your theory in the comments, hit that like button, share this with someone who follows the drama, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next chapter.